Record. Hello, good evening, everybody. Welcome to our Tuesday evening. And we're continuing on our journey through the body and the various systems in it. And last week we started on our energy. Where does it come from? What does it do? How do we get it? How do we generate more energy, etc.? And we started from a cellular level. And we worked through the different food groups, which are things like fats and carbohydrates and sugars, etc. So we're going to pick up where we left off from that last week and carry on from there. Let me share my screen. Pardon the noise in the background. I have a small person here. And where's my slideshow? Okay, so we are looking at the cells and cellular energy. How do they work? And as I said, we've gone through the bits and pieces about the cells and how they work and what they look like. And we started on how we can feed these cells to get the best energy out of them. And now we're covering fats and lipids. So last week we covered carbohydrates, and this week we're going to cover fats and lipids. Now, fats are the nutrients that contain the most concentrated form of energy. Fats are a type of lipid. When you see the word lipid, understand that to mean fat. Now, lipids are substances that are somewhat similar to carbohydrates, but they contain less oxygen and they do not dissolve in water. Have you ever tried to dissolve fat into water or oil in water? It just doesn't work. Fat is one of the essential nutrients that are important for proper bodily function. A small daily intake of fat is required. So these people who go on the low fat or the no fat diets are actually doing themselves quite a bit of disservice. Now, 1 gram of fat provides more than twice as much energy as 1 gram of carbohydrate. So it's quite a potent form. Think of a nuclear bomb. That little nucleus is a tiny little thing, but it makes an awful big bang. And the fat, but we're talking good fats, not bad fats, are a similar type of thing. Now, fats are part of many body tissues and are important as carriers of other nutrients, such as vitamins. So fats also carry the flavor of foods, making foods tastier. But consumption of fat should be closely monitored because, like always, there's good and bad and too much. So what are the different types of fats? The main one is saturated fats, and these are usually solid at room temperature. They contain a maximum number of hydrogen atoms. Tropical oils, butter, and animal fats tend to be high in saturated fats. And a diet high in saturated fats can lead to an increased chance of heart and blood vessel disease, obesity, and some types of cancer. Mostly when they become rancid and they start to rot, for want of any better terminology, in the arteries. That's when they become a problem. If they are freely moving throughout the system, not so much of a problem. Now, unsaturated fats are those fats that are liquid at room temperature. Olive oil and peanut oil are called monounsaturated fats because they lack 1 pair of hydrogen atoms. Fish oils and most vegetable oils, such as corn, soybean, and sunflower oils, are called polyunsaturated fats because they lack two or more pairs of hydrogen atoms. Now, think of these things. How much olive oil, if you pour it out of a bottle, could you store on top of each other? Not very much. How many pats of butter can you store on top of each other if it's not kept in the fridge? Quite a high power. So that is where your saturated, unsaturated, etc. come from. So what sort of foods are fat and lipid foods? Foods that we generally know as high in fat include fatty meats and fish, so things like pork and lamb, cheese, butter, avocado, nuts and seeds, and chocolate. Now remember, whenever we talk chocolate, we are not talking milk chocolate, we are talking dark chocolate. So there are many foods that contain lipids, but some foods are worse than others. Beef fat, also known as beef tallow, is almost entirely made of saturated fats. Almost half of the lipids in beef fat consist of saturated fats. In fact, a single tablespoon or 12 grams can add more than 6 grams of saturated fat to your diet. Chicken and turkey are generally quite healthy. However, their skin is not. Poultry skin is rich in lipids. A single ounce of chicken skin can contain up to 2.26 grams of saturated fat. When fresh milk is processed, a lot of the fat is removed and combined into heavy cream. As a result, heavy cream is a high-fat liquid. Even though it is liquid at room temperature, it still contains a large amount of saturated fat. An 100-gram serving of heavy cream contains more than 23 grams of saturated fats. Now, butter is made by condensing the saturated fats from cream into a single block. As a result, butter is more than half saturated fat. A single tablespoon of butter contains up to 7 grams of saturated fats. Different types of cheese are produced from milk with different amounts of fat. In general, fat makes cheese softer, so soft cheeses like brie contain more lipids, and a single serving of brie contains up to 9 grams of saturated fats in a 50-gram portion. That's quite a significant amount. Bacon is a particularly fatty cut of pork, and bacon fat is largely made of saturated fats. As a result, eating 100 grams of bacon adds 12.6 grams of saturated fats to your diet. So maybe don't eat the fatty part of the bacon. Now, that term that gets thrown around all over the place, because if you go to your doctor, one of the things that they will generally check is your cholesterol levels. Cholesterol in itself is not the enemy. Eating foods high in fats, especially saturated fats, may increase the level of cholesterol, which is a waxy fat-like substance produced by the body. And if you do not eat any foods or drink any milk or anything that contains cholesterol, so if your diet is 100% cholesterol-free, your body will still create cholesterol. It's created in the liver. Now, cholesterol is part of cell membranes and nerve tissues, and it is used by the body to form vitamin D and other hormones. It is found only in foods that come from animals, such as butter, eggs, and meats. It is not an essential nutrient because the body produces cholesterol in liver. Once again, if you have too much, that's bad. Enough is good. But where is that enough? And that is always the tricky part. As cholesterol levels in the body increase, the risk of heart and artery diseases increase. Some of the cholesterol tends to be deposited on the walls of the artery, thereby reducing the flow of blood to the cells supplied by these arteries. And that is where the problem comes about. If the cholesterol is floating around your system and it's held in suspension, like what happens with oil and LDC, there's no problem. It's when it stops and sticks to the wall of the artery, and then becomes rancid, that is where the problems begin. So when they do a blood test and they check your cholesterol levels in the blood, it doesn't really mean that much. The one to check is to see what your homocysteine levels are, because that is what's keeping the cholesterol in circulation in your arteries. So if you've got cholesterol, that's okay. In fact, cholesterol is used by the body to seal or to protect the artery walls. But if it stays stuck, that's where the problem comes about. So you get two forms of cholesterol. Cholesterol is transported in the blood in two forms. LDL, or low density lipid, is the bad form. It tends to deposit cholesterol on the walls of the blood vessels. HDL, or high density lipid, is the good form that removes cholesterol from the cells and brings it back to the liver and intestines to be recycled or excreted. So once again, the cholesterol is moving. It's okay, because it's going to get into your liver, get processed, and get ejected from the body. If it takes up residence, well, that's where the problem comes in. So when they do a cholesterol test, what they should be doing is checking to see what your LDL levels are, your HDL levels are, and your homocysteine levels. And a lot of places, unfortunately, don't check that homocysteine level. So those are the three things that should be checked, and you work out an average of what they are. Now, exercise has been proven to raise HDL, and low-fat diets lower LDL. So, way to get healthy? In theory, eat a low-fat, not a no-fat, but a low-fat diet, and take up some form of exercise. So where do we find these cholesterols in food? Now, eggs are one of the most nutritious foods you can eat. They also happen to be very high in cholesterol, which is why over the years, you've always been told, if you've got cholesterol, stay away from eggs. Well, fortunately, that research is now changing, and they're showing that you can carry on eating the eggs. One large egg, 50 grams, delivers 207 milligrams of cholesterol. Now, people often avoid eggs out of fear that they may cause blood levels of cholesterol to skyrocket. However, as I was saying, the research shows that eggs don't raise the cholesterol levels, and that eating whole eggs may boost the heart protective HDL cholesterol. Aside from being rich in cholesterol, eggs are an excellent source of highly absorbable protein and beneficial nutrients such as selenium, vitamin A, and several B vitamins. Research has shown that eating 1 to 3 eggs every day is perfectly safe for healthy people. If, however, you have a problem with cholesterol in that your body is producing too much LDL, maybe you need to chat to a dietitian and reduce the number of eggs that you're having on a daily basis. A single slice, or 22 grams, of Swiss cheese provides around 20 milligrams of cholesterol. Although cheese is often associated with increased cholesterol, several studies have shown that full-fat cheese doesn't raise the cholesterol levels. Different types of cheese have varying nutritional content, but most provide a good amount of calcium, protein, vitamin A, and B vitamins. Now, shellfish, including clams, crab, and shrimp, are an excellent source of protein, B vitamins, iron, and selenium. They're also high in cholesterol. For example, an 85-gram serving of canned shrimp provides 214 milligrams of cholesterol. Additionally, shellfish contain bioactive components such as carotenoid antioxidants and the amino acid taurine, which helps to prevent heart disease and to lower the bad cholesterol. Now, free-range steak is packed with protein, as most of us are aware, I think. And when we talk free-range steak, that, in my opinion, is mostly what we get in, especially our part of South Africa. A lot of places overseas, unfortunately, have feedlot steak, and that is cattle that are raised in these artificial pens, basically, and fed a lot of junk, very much similar to battery hens. If you look at a chicken farm, they've got these huge big barns full of chickens sitting in little cages on top of each other and fed all sorts of weird and wonderful things. Those type of chicken and that type of steak is not that good. But free-range or grass-fed steak is good, and it's packed with protein, as well as important vitamins and minerals like vitamin B12, zinc, selenium, and iron. It's lower in cholesterol than feedlot beef and contains significantly more omega-3 fatty acids, which have anti-inflammatory properties. A 113-gram serving of free-range steak packs about 62 milligrams of cholesterol, but taken in combination with everything else, it's still healthy. And did you know that you got omega-3 in beef as well as fish? Although processed meat such as bacon, sausage, ham, and most deli meats has a clear association with heart disease, several large population studies have found no association between red meat intake and heart disease risk. And this is a heavily debated subject that I see on a very regular basis. Subscribe to Twitter, and on there's a whole lot of different scientists and doctors and dietitians who are regularly having almost stand-up fights between whether you're just going to have a carnivore diet, just a vegetarian diet, a vegan diet, or as what we would term a healthy diet, where you've got a combination of everything. So it is a hotly debated subject about whether or not red meat will kill you or not. My personal opinion, I think we're probably more at risk of a lot of other things and shouldn't stress too much about the red meat. In addition to being loaded with nutrients, sardines are a tasty and convenient protein source. You can add to a wide variety of dishes. One 92-gram serving of these tiny fish contains 131 milligrams of cholesterol, plus 63% of the daily value for vitamin D, 137% of the DV for vitamin B12, and 35% of the DV for calcium. What's more, sardines are an excellent source of iron. For a second. Of iron, selenium, phosphorus, zinc, copper, magnesium, and vitamin E. Excuse me for 1 second. Hang up. Full-fat yogurt is a cholesterol-rich food packed with nutrients such as protein, calcium, phosphorus, B vitamins, magnesium, zinc, and potassium. 245 grams of full-fat yogurt contains 31.8 milligrams of cholesterol. Now, research associates increased intake of full-fat fermented dairy products with reduced LDL, bad cholesterol, and blood pressure, as well as a lower risk of stroke, heart disease, and diabetes. Fermented dairy products like yogurt also benefit intestinal health by supporting friendly gut bacteria. Now, be careful with the different yogurts that you get, because sweetened yogurt generally is not as good for you as a raw yogurt, because the sweetened yogurt has obviously got sugar added, and sugar kills bacteria. And you want the good bacteria, because that's obviously why you're eating the yogurt in the first place. Now, protein, most of us are familiar with protein. And we get two different types of protein. We get complete and we get incomplete. And then you get legumes, which are also a source of protein. Now, proteins are substances found in every cell. The body needs proteins to build and repair all body tissues. Protein is an important part of blood cells. Proteins are made up of carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, and nitrogen atoms that are formed into basic units called amino acids. Does this start to sound familiar? Because if you think about our protein drinks and amino acids, this is why it is so important. There are 22 different amino acids. None of them are essential, and the other amino acids can be produced by the body. So essential means they have to come from the diet. Non-essential means that your body can produce them. So nutrients that regulate this: vitamins, minerals, and water are nutrients that work with the energy providing nutrients to be sure that the body functions properly. Water is the most vital nutrient because it provides the means for all other nutrients to be carried throughout the body. Eating a variety of foods in the right amounts is usually all that is needed to get your daily supply of vitamins and minerals. Now, the trick over here, and the question is, and I think it was Don Lawson that said it. He said, when you speak to doctors and dietitians, they will tell you you don't need to supplement because you can get all the protein, the vitamins, and the minerals that you need from a balanced diet. This is correct. The question, however, is, are you getting all the vitamins, minerals, proteins, etc. from your daily diet? Is your diet balanced enough to provide everything? I know personally, mine isn't. That is why I supplement. Vitamins, minerals, and water are not digested by our body, and they do not provide calories. Instead, vitamins, minerals, and water are released from foods we eat and are absorbed by the body's tissues. They work with carbohydrates, fats, and proteins to promote growth and regulate body processes. Again, my opinion, that is why your best source of a supplement should be food. So whole foods processed down are still foods in a compact version containing the vitamins, minerals, etc. that your body can recognize and digest and utilize. Whereas a synthetic vitamin is not going to go through the same process. So vitamins, I think most of us are familiar with them. Pretty much, if you had to stop anybody in the street and ask them if they've ever heard of vitamins, I think about 100% of them will tell you yes. Do they know what they do? No. Do they know what they're good for? Highly unlikely. Now, some diseases can develop because of lack of a particular vitamin. Vitamins are compounds found in living things and are needed in small amounts for life and growth and to prevent diseases. Now, one of the diseases that we are most familiar with due to a lack of vitamin is scurvy, which is due to a lack of vitamin C. Now, vitamins help build bones and tissues, and they also help change carbohydrates and fats into energy. So they've got quite a broad range of functions. Because the body cannot make most vitamins, they must be supplied by the foods that we eat. So this is just a little graphic to tell you more or less of the different types. So you get the fat-soluble vitamins, which dissolve fat and can be stored in the body. And these are the ones that you can have an overdose because you can have a buildup over time of that particular vitamin. including things like your vitamin A, your vitamin D, your vitamin E, and your vitamin K. I'm not going to go through all of these things right now. You can always freeze this frame later and have a look at it, or I can get into it more in depth in another session. But you also get your water-soluble vitamins. Now, the water-soluble vitamins dissolve in water, obviously, because water-soluble vitamins are not stored by the body to any extent. So basically, your body will utilize what it needs and then simply process out and flush out what it doesn't need. It doesn't stay there. Now, foods rich in these vitamins must be eaten more often than foods with fat-soluble vitamins. Because as I said, the fat-soluble one can stay in your system and build up with time. The water-soluble, what isn't used now, is ditched. The fruits and vegetables are a good source of water-soluble vitamins. And water-soluble vitamins include thiamine or B1, riboflavin or B2, niacin, vitamin B6, folacin, which is also folic acid, B12, pantothenic acid, biotin, and vitamin C or ascorbic acid. Now, I think I'm going to stop right here because I want to still leave time for some questions and answers. So I'm going to stop my presentation at the minerals and we'll go through those next week. Does anybody have any questions at this stage before I stop recording? Yes, Linda?
Shall I ask my questions after? Isn't it better to do the questions after the recording? What do you think?
Okay. All right. If there's any comments, yeah, if there's any comments, then we can do the comments now and then I can stop recording and answer the questions after that. But you got any comments on any of these?
Okay, I have a comment, but it shouldn't be recorded.
Okay,